That's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so.
Welcome back to the Bottom Line Wrestling Cast. This is episode 5. This is our Survivor Series 1996 episode. We're calling it D.T.A. Don't Trust Anybody. And you guys noticed right from the start there, we got that new music in. Stone Cold's theme.
About time.
See you later, Ringmaster. Well, I'm Mike Prue. I'm here with JV, of course. And we're going to be breaking down, like I said, the month of November and the tail end of October. Last week, we covered a whole bunch. We covered July through October, and we saw the progression of Stone Cold's persona developing over those months, and that brought us to the end of October at the Buried Alive pay-per-view, the In Your House pay-per-view against Hunter Hearst Helmsley, which was originally supposed to be Savio Vega match. So we're going to continue from that point in this episode and get to that Survivor Series match with Bret the Hitman Hart that had been building up from the months of September and October, and it's finally going to happen in November here at Survivor Series, and it's going to be exciting to talk about. There's also other great things that happen in this episode too, like Pillman's gun, home invasion.
One of the best angles or segments in all of wrestling history. Controversial, but
controversial.
Amazing.
And it's only 1 week. It's one episode, and then that's it.
Yeah.
You know, it was one shot. So we'll get into that in a little while, too. JV, anything to talk about? Oh, you just want to dive right into this?
Let's dive right in. Let's get right in here to the build to Survivor Series. So.
All right. So starting off with the episode of Raw right after the In Your House pay-per-view. It was on October 21st, 1996. That's Raw 181. And they had been hyping up the return of Bret Hart. Bret Hart has been gone since WrestleMania 12, since he had the Iron Man match with Shawn Michaels, since he lost the title. And now he's coming back. And for the past 2 months, we've had constant call-outs by Stone Cold, calling Bret the shit man and calling him a ballerina because he wears pink and a bunch of other things.
And you know what that means, the black and the pink. And
yeah, you know what that means. He wasn't allowed to say it, though.
Yeah.
So you have Bret Hart come out here on this episode of Raw, and he's going to accept the challenge of Stone Cold. So we're going to first play the clip of him accepting that challenge, only about a minute long. Okay, it happens about 31 minutes into that episode of Raw, but we'll play it here for you now. Take a listen.
Which is why I've decided to accept the challenge of the best wrestler in the WWF today. And in the Survivor Series, I will face Stone Cold Steve Austin. I might be a little rusty, and maybe I won't be. But Steve Austin, I want you to know one thing. Madison Square Garden, it's not a church, but it's holy ground. And Steve Austin, Stone Cold, we'll see who kicks whose ass in Madison Square Garden.
Okay, JV, was there something that you wanted to bring up about this? We were talking earlier before we started to record, and you had said something about Stone Cold's persona when he was hearing about this.
So obviously Bret Hart, accepts the challenge. So Pillman celebrates, and Stone Cold almost looks annoyed by it. which doesn't really make any sense because, dude, you submitted the challenge. What's so annoying about him accepting it? You thought Bret Hart was just gonna, like, nah, I'm good. I'm all set with you. I don't accept your challenge, Stone Cold. Like, come on.
Yeah,
Like, why were you annoyed?
He's been talking about it for 2 months that he wants to go through his list, and that's Stone Cold's list, and everyone's on it.
Yeah.
Bret Hart's on it, and he's gonna say all these things about Bret Hart, and then when Bret Hart accepts it, he's like, "Oh,
Yeah,
what the hell?"
he's all like dicked off by it. It's like, come on,
Well,
man.
it's funny though. He was even more dicked off about Pillman jumping and being all giddy in the back.
Yeah.
So he turns at him and just gives him the look like, "Cut the shit."
Yeah, well, he's like in the back, like excited, like waiting for Bret Hart's answer, and then it was odd. It worked,
Yeah.
obviously, but it was just interesting, when you dissect it like we did, so.
Yeah. And that look right there that Austin gives Pillman is the beginning of what we were talking about earlier with the home invasion that we'll get to. And then also the next thing that comes up on that weekend Superstars episode. But before we get to that, I just want to make a little pointer, a little trivia. When you watch that clip, if you go back and watch that episode and you watch that audio clip that we just played for you, you'll see behind Pillman is Rocky Maivia, The Rock, who at this point is yet to debut. So he's on camera for the first time in WWF television on that Raw, just standing in the back like a little job wrestler.
And he ends up debuting, what, at Survivor Series?
Yeah,
The
he
Survivor
debuts
leading
at
up to,
Survivor
and then
Series.
beats Goldust, right? Is it Goldust that beats?
I think he pins Goldust maybe. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because he uses like wasn't his finisher was like the shoulder breaker.
Yeah.
For obviously
it was
all the
a-
greatness,
it was-
that was him.
It was a traditional Survivor Series match.
Was it? All
I
right.
think Goldust was the last one that he eliminated.
He was like Sonny's guy or something. Not that we're talking about The Rock, but it's just fun to go down memory lane a little. Before The
Yeah.
Rock yet to debut. That's a good catch, Mike.
Yeah, with the Chia Pet
Yeah.
hiccup.
He was one of the
But although
wrestlers.
they had-
No kidding.
They had been showing some vignettes about Maivia prior to that, but you hadn't seen him just in the back like that. So, anyway, this isn't the Rock Show. This is Stone Cold Show. So let's move on. It's Stone Cold.
The Rock gets enough attention.
Yeah. All right. So on that weekend, Superstars 10/27/96, Austin is having an interview with Brian Pillman, who's doing that often. Is having interview segments. We've seen him interview Owen Hart before. He had interviewed Steve Austin once already. And here he is interviewing Austin again. So at the end of that interview, we don't have that clip for you, but you can find it out there on YouTube. And Brian Pillman is excited for the match, as he was when he heard that the match was going to be announced. So he gets all excited and says, and Austin's going to be facing the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. And then Austin just attacks him because why are you calling him the best there is, best there was, best there ever will be? He's supposed to be my friend. So he goes, he gets he gets a chair, and then he puts it around his ankle and stomps it, and then breaks his ankle. That's the storyline. But what was really happening is Pillman was actually going for ankle surgery and was going to be out for some time anyway. So this would be a good way to get Pillman on his way and also lead to this great angle that's going to come up the next weekend or the next week on Raw.
And I just have a point to make. So Superstars, I think what we need to do is, because we need to be able to watch this stuff. This old Superstar stuff, WWE Network needs to step their game up. So everyone out there, tweet at WWE Network and tell them, hey, we want these Superstars episodes. Because it's some good stuff, especially in the 90s. Like they kind of helped build a lot of feuds through Superstars. Because, at the time, Raw wasn't a 3-hour spectacle that it is now. So
Absolutely.
let's
You only
get
had an
WWE on
hour
board
on Raw.
here. What the hell?
Yeah, there's a lot of good interview segments that used to be on Superstars. If we were talking about the time before Raw, like 92, 91, 90, everything happened on that show.
Yeah.
So put that stuff out there. Get on the ball with it. You have it all. Just put it on.
Hey,
Big deal.
in the meantime, you can YouTube it. It's out there.
Yeah.
So
Most of the stuff you can find on YouTube. But I want that nice, easy access to it all. you
yeah.
know.
What am I paying for? Come on.
Right, exactly. All right, so we go to now Raw 182. And I misspoke a second ago saying that the next week was going to have that Pillman invasion segment. That doesn't happen until a week later. So here we are, Raw 182, October 28th, 1996. And all we have for Austin really is Austin live in studio. And he's going to be interviewed with Bret Hart eventually. So they're teasing this throughout the show. And we're going to play we're going to play a couple audio clips of this live in studio because it's really helping build up the match like one last time for Survivor Series. Since Bret Hart has now accepted it, they can have these interviews in separate locations, which Austin's kind of pissed about, is that he has to be in studio. He had to drive all the way to Connecticut, and Bret Hart gets to stay home. And then they even say, oh, next week we'll be interviewing Brian Pillman from home, and that really sets him off. He gets really pissed off that he has to be in the studio and everybody else gets to stay home. So we'll play that clip now, the first part of it. We're going to break it up into two parts. This first part is about 4 minutes long. Take a listen.
Welcome back, everyone. Yes, next week via satellite, just as we have Bret Hart live from Calgary. Next week, ladies and gentlemen, joining us, the injured Brian Pillman, live from his home in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Whoa.
Joining us now.
Live from his home? What do you mean you're going to go live from his home? You go to Bret's house, you go to Brian's house. Well, why didn't you go to Victoria, Texas, and come to my house?
Well, Mr. Austin, you are
No,
live
shut
here.
up! If anybody's going to Brian's house next week, well, you can damn well bet that Stone Cold Steve Austin's going to be there, because if you're going to have a little party with some crippled freak, you can bet I'll be there, and that's the bottom line.
Don't you think you've done enough to Brian Pillman?
What do you mean done enough? What do you mean done enough?
Let's take you back. All right, let's show you the footage that happened. WWF Superstars just yesterday. Here we go. Now let's listen up. You called him a crippled freak.
The whole damn world's gonna find out. I will do exactly what I say. I am gonna whip his ass. See, here's the problem. It's my interview.
Yeah.
Listen.
Austin versus the best there was.
This is the mistake.
And the best there
I can't believe that. Look at this.
And the light bulb went off in my head, and Brian Pillman took my interview time and tried to turn it into the Hitman's interview time,
Right.
and that just ain't gonna work with Stone Cold.
This man is crippled. Look at
Wham!
Look what you did. You took his very cane and
That's
you struck
right.
that ankle. And then look what you did when you brought a chair into the ring.
That's
Look.
right. If I'd had a little more time with that cane, who knows what I would have done with it.
And then, as they were taking Brian Pillman out in the emergency vehicle, you stopped the progress of the emergency vehicle with that car. You wouldn't let him go. You wouldn't let him take him to the hospital.
Well, that's because if they're going to take him anywhere, they should have
You threw the
carried his
keys
ass to
away.
the cemetery, because if he comes back, that's where he's going to go.
Are you telling us you're going to go to his house next week? You're going to go to Pillman's house? You live at Pillman's house?
Hey, when you get jerked around as long as I have, and when the WWF starts jerking you around, you got to do what you got to do.
Is that
and
right?
Brian Pillman's going to get a house call.
What kind of a man are you? What kind of a man would do that to his best friend? What kind of a creep are you?
You see, here's the thing. Brian Pillman forgot. D.T.A, brother. Don't trust anybody.
Right.
You thought I was your friend. You were the biggest puppet in the world, and I had the strings, and there you were.
He was a crippled man.
That's right. He's still a crippled man, and he's got that stupid, raspy voice with 33 third operation. Who really gives a rat's ass about all that? It's Stone Cold's time. Shut up.
Why hasn't Gorilla Monsoon taken action against you?
Why do you keep asking me stupid questions? Because you know, Vince, the Gorilla Monsoon is just a puppet. That's all. You know you're the one that's pulling all the strings here. You're the boss. Why don't you do something to me?
Because something...
No, shut up. I'll tell you why. Because you're a greedy, selfish promoter, and you know Stone Cold and Bret Hart are going to get it on in the biggest match of the decade, and you don't want to miss out. You're going to fill your back pocket full, son. But listen to this. I'm going to make a lot of money from this match, but I'd just as soon kick his ass for free.
All right, in any event, Stone Cold Steve Austin live in our studios. And ladies and
Right.
gentlemen, scheduled to join us momentarily, Bret the Hitman Hart. There he is live from
Punk.
Calgary, Alberta, Canada. We're going to get it on
Stupid
face
look
to
on your
face
face.
when we return. Stay with us, everyone, for
Right.
more Raw.
All right, so a couple good things that get pointed out there is that Stone Cold sets the stage for next week where he says Brian Pillman's going to get a house call. Because they just recapped what he did to Pillman on that last Superstars where he broke his ankle with the chair. So he points that out. And he also mentions for the first time on television, which is how we got our name of our episode this week, he tells Pillman, D.T.A, you should know that more than anybody. Don't trust anybody in this sport. So even though they're best friends, Stone Cold says, don't trust anybody. If I go after my best friend like that, I'm going to go after Bret Hart like that. So,
yeah, I thought it was really good. I mean, Stone Cold, obviously starts to break kayfabe, I guess, in a sense, that he calls out Light to Vince McMahon being the boss, and Gorilla Monsoon being a puppet, because I think someone mentions like, oh, Gorilla Monsoon's gonna fine you or something for the attack on Pillman, and he's like, well, Gorilla's just a puppet. We all know Vince is the boss. He's just a greedy self-promoter. Like, it's good stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he points that out, and that wasn't. I mean, it was known to most people, but for a regular TV audience viewer of the show, they probably didn't realize that. But what I like about that whole segment there is that you're not going to do anything to me because at this match in Survivor Series, this is the match of the decade.
Yep.
And he's not that wrong either.
No, he's not, and he's setting he's putting himself out there. He's like, I'm a prize fighter. I make money.
Right.
Is basically, in a sense, is what Stone Cold's kind of accomplishing up to this point, and positioning himself as a talent. So,
right, as a top talent.
And even when he's saying all this, Vince is not even acknowledging it. It's like he didn't hear it. It was just well played by both parts.
Yep.
So,
yeah, it was excellent. All right, so that brings us to the second part of it. Okay, he's going to be now split screen with Bret Hart, and they're going to go back and forth for a little bit here for about 4 minutes also. So take a listen to that part.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Bret the Hitman Hart, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Gentlemen, we thank you so much for your patience.
Right.
And Bret, let's get the first question, if you don't mind, to you. Some say that the reason you took so long in making up your mind to come back to action here in the World Wrestling Federation, well, there are a number of reasons, but principal among them is that you knew that Steve Austin was the man who has challenged you. And my question is, whether or not, is that one of the reasons why you were reticent to make up your mind?
No, not at all. I think what you're looking at 12 years, and if you really want to add on even more years than that, you can, because I've grown up with wrestling my whole life, and you're looking at 12 years without any kind of a break of being physically mauled by giants and great wrestlers for years and years and years, and it just took its toll.
Yeah.
And I'll be the first one to say that Steve Austin, Stone Cold, is a great wrestler, and I knew immediately upon seeing him that I was going to be dealing with a very, very tough wrestler. But as far as, he had nothing to do with my decision to step back from wrestling. None whatsoever.
Basically, loosely translated, you're saying, yes, Vince, I'm afraid Stone Cold is going to kick my ass. That's what you're saying.
That's not what you're saying, is it, Bret?
Yeah, somehow you need to clean that up a bit.
Yeah, I think
as
so.
far as you kicking my ass.
There you go.
You maybe should think twice about that. I don't know if you got what it takes to kick my ass. I've actually recuperated. I've been off. I'm ready for this match.
But Bret, if I may,
I'm better than I've ever been.
Sure.
If I can ask you this, what about the fact that you have not been in the ring for some 6 months, and there must be some ring rust? Would it not have been more wise for you to accept a match with a lesser individual rather than Stone Cold Steve Austin?
Right. Answer.
You know, I don't see it that way. I mean, sure, there might be a little ring rust. Maybe there won't be. No one's gonna know till I get in the ring how good or bad the 5 months off has affected my wrestling style. But I don't really care. I want to go in and I want to accomplish a lot of things in the World Wrestling Federation starting right now. And what better way to do it than take on Stone Cold, who I think, and I said it before on my live interview, and I'll say it again right now, is the best wrestler in the World Wrestling Federation until November 17th.
But if Steve Austin defeats you, I mean, obviously this man has great confidence in himself. He would not have challenged you. He's trying to make a name for himself. This is like a gunslinger type situation where indeed you've got a reputation. He wants to live off of your reputation, and if he defeats you in Madison Square Garden, the question is then, will you continue your comeback here in the WWF?
Well, I mean, that's a very likely possibility. And you know what? I've thought about that. And I'm willing to accept whatever happens in that match. You know, and if I come up short, then I'm just going to get right back up on my horse like a gunfighter and, you know, make it.
Well, see, here's the deal. Shut up. Here's the deal. Win, lose, draw, Bret. It ain't over.
What do you
It
mean by
ain't
that?
over. You're never going to get through with Stone Cold Steve Austin. You're going to have to kill me first, son, and that's the bottom line, and it's the truth. Win, lose, or draw,
right.
I will always be on your ass.
Well, that's why I'm the excellence of execution.
Yeah,
You
whatever.
wanna wear a hood while you get assassinated or
Uh-huh. I'm the best there is, I'm the best there was, and I'm the best there ever will be, and you're going to find that out firsthand, son. Say something.
you know, everyone thinks that because I'm coming back that I have this built-up impression in my head that I'm going to clean up the WWF. I know better than anyone else that it's going to be a real
right.
hard job. And,
Bret, we thank you so much for joining us. We're
It's
running
Austin's
out of time.
house now.
All right, thank you very much for joining us. Bret the Hitman Hart,
No,
Stone Cold.
no. You can tell him to go kiss off, but I've been here all night, and I ain't leaving yet, and you can
up,
stop
Steve.
counting me down, because I done told you once, son. We got a damn problem.
hey, wait a minute.
No more. That ain't gonna work.
There's a production assistant.
No, we ain't through that by a long shot. You don't count me down.
What is this?
Nobody counts me down. You want your precious minors? You think it's all fun and games for Stone Cold? It ain't fun and games for somebody long shot.
Okay, so one good thing that I like about that part of that interview segment is that Austin is acknowledged as being the best wrestler in the WWF by Bret Hart at that point.
Yep.
Bret Hart had been away, and Bret Hart's proclaiming, he's saying, Steve Austin is the best wrestler in the WWF. You know, which goes back to what JV was just saying before that clip, is that he's the top guy. And now even Bret Hart is saying it, who was just the top guy before he left. So it's being acknowledged that Austin is a top guy here. And to Bret Hart's point is that he then goes on to say, well, that's not going to be true after November 17th. After November 17th, I'm back. Then I'll be the best.
Yeah, he says, I'm the best. He's like, Stone Cold's the best wrestler in WWE until now.
Right, until November 17th. So they're hyping up this match. It's big match feel. It's been being promoted for 2 months already, from September through October, and now coming into November, just a couple weeks away from the match. It's really getting hyped up and starting to get exciting. I remember at the time being excited for this match.
Me too.
Because I loved Bret Hart at the time, and he had been gone. So and during that time, we'd come to like Stone Cold. So it was like best of both worlds at that point.
Our household was split between my father, my brother, and I. I mean, we all liked Bret Hart because we weren't really we didn't really care for Shawn Michaels. Obviously, we know he's great, but rooting for him, it was like, oh, we were Bret Hart guys. And then you had Stone Cold, and we all liked Stone Cold, and then they're kind of, Stone Cold's kind of kicking off his first big feud with Bret Hart, and it's like, oh no, like who are we gonna? It's funny. It's good memories.
Oh yeah. So another thing that's funny is Stone Cold's just being like a big dickhead, if you notice.
Yeah.
And a lot of what you don't see here, because we just played the audio, you have to go on the network and watch, because a lot of facials and expressions that Austin has, like he's just like annoyed and pissed off.
Yeah.
His
facial expressions might be the best part.
He's giving the facial expression of like, hurry up, Bret, spit out what you have to say. So he's doing that, and then he finally says, say something! Say something! It's excellent by Austin. And the fact that it's live, too, is just Austin just screwing with Bret, and Bret was probably pissed, too. Like, what the hell, dude? I'm trying to talk. Being the dickhead here.
You definitely have to watch the video, because that's the facial expressions are just probably the most entertaining part of the whole thing. So
eventually they cut off, and Austin's pissed about being cut off, and he's like, what is this, a rib? I'm being cut off? No way.
He uses that word rib, too, which is funny, because in his podcast, he uses that word a lot there. He's like, we're out there just ribbing each other and blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
So
you probably didn't hear that on TV before either. That's like an inside term.
Yeah.
To be ribbed. So he ends up being pissed off. He attacks a production assistant, which looked pretty rough. He tossed that little guy, Ross, and threw some shit on him too.
Yeah, through like a ladder and staging on him or something.
Yeah, really went to town on him.
So he looked like I was like, at first I'd take his up. Is that like Harvey Whippleman dressed up or something? But
Yeah, I don't know who it was. For all we know, it's probably one of the Hardys again.
yeah, right.
So eventually, later on, because this whole segment's kind of broken up throughout the whole episode of Raw. So by the end, the cops show up at WWF Studios, and Austin's flipping out on the cops, saying Vince won't let anything happen to me. Continuing on with that whole idea that he's going to make a lot of money for WWF and for Vince McMahon. So nothing's going to happen to him because they want this match to go on at Survivor Series. And then that wraps up that episode.
He's an untouchable guy right now, that Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Right. And he knows it. But this now brings us to the invasion. Not the WCW invasion. This is a better invasion. The invasion of Pillman's home. This happens on Raw 183. This is November 4th, 1996. And it starts off right away, like, Kevin Kelly is live at Pillman's house, like, and it's all tense and dramatic.
Wicked dramatic.
Yeah.
It's so good. And because of the production quality of the 90s, it makes it actually looks better then than they would now. Because now it would be overproduced, and then, like, the lack of production and the, technology wasn't at the point it is now. Everything just felt so natural and just perfect.
Yeah. No, it comes off as real. And you're right. Like, if they did it today, it would be like the Randy Orton Bray Wyatt house match that they had.
Yeah.
Or it'd be like one of the Broken Matt Hardy or Woken Matt Hardy segments.
Yeah, they just overproduced.
Right.
This just felt it felt real.
Yeah. So you got this very tense situation. Steve Austin had said the previous week that he's going to give Brian Pillman a house call, and everybody's worried about that. So they started to talk about, I heard Pillman has a gun too. So Jerry Lawler brings that up, which if you say that, then there's going to be a gun involved. So they knew there's going to be a gun involved from the start here. It wasn't a surprise. So Austin's on his way. He's on the phone with Doc Hendricks. Okay, they're interrupting a match, which good, because so many Stone Cold matches had been interrupted for other angles before. So that's going to happen a lot on this episode for people having their matches. So right in the very first match, Steve Austin is on the phone interrupting a match and saying that he's on his way to Pillman's house. He even quotes another Bible verse, and not 3:16, not John 3:16, but what he calls Austin 25:17, which is the famous Samuel L. Jackson Pulp Fiction verse.
Which my brother actually knows by heart. He has that memorized. If you ask him to say that on the spot, he'll probably say it.
With furious anger. That one, right? Is that what he says?
Yeah.
Furious.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, it's
something like that.
It's biblical shit,
Yeah.
Thou shalls and lightning hitting people in the ass and shit. My brother knows it. Word for word.
So ultimately, this all leads to the Brian Pillman episode. He's in his house. He's all laid up. He's got his leg all extended because of his ankle injury. And they're going to interview him, I guess, about... They never really made that clear. I guess the interview is supposed to be about Austin attacking him.
Yeah.
Is that what they were going to interview him for?
That's what I got out of it. I thought the same thing, too. I was like, what? Why are we here again?
Yeah, what's the point of this interview? So it had to be that Austin attacked him on Superstars, and they were going to have a little interview with him. But it ends up becoming this huge thing, this huge ordeal. Because now Austin is going to make this house call, and he's circling the neighborhood. And, Brian Pillman...
Looking for his house. Looking for his house.
Looking for his house is his friend's house.
Yeah, right.
They've said numerous times that they're best friends and that they were tag team champions together, but now Austin's like circling the neighborhood trying to find the house.
Should have called an Uber, man.
So Pillman, he gets all crazy in front of the camera, and then says something like, Austin 3:16 says this, well, my Glock.
He does use the word Glock.
Yeah, he says something about his Glock, takes his gun out and cocks it back, and then all the announcers freak out. Oh my God, what are we doing?
Which goes back to a point from an earlier episode. I think it was last episode where we talked about Pillman and he has the gun shirt on.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't call cops, or something the
Yeah,
shirt
I
said.
don't call the cops. Which I thought maybe that's how they got the idea for this whole skit.
Yeah. That's why I bring it up now. That was a good
That
catch.
shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So ultimately, Austin does show up on the property, but then you have some people outside the house protected Pillman.
You know what they remind me of? the Pineapple Express.
Oh yeah.
Like the guys that show up at what's his name? Danny McBride's character.
Yeah, Danny McBride and then Craig Robinson.
Yeah. But they remind me of the two guys that like show up at the house. No, they show up at whatever. We're getting a little off topic here. But they look very 90s and like just beat up.
So you have these two guys which were apparently student wrestlers at the Les Thatcher School, which is where Pillman often trained and worked out. So these were people that he knew that were wrestlers, but Austin's not treating them as wrestlers. He's treating them as people who's kicking their ass. Because if you thought, like what I said earlier about that production assistant who he tossed around, this is a lot more worse than that. And you can see some of the shots that he gives. He's not being safe at all, really. He's tossing them into the kiddie pool. He's slamming their heads into the car door. It's just
the kiddie pool.
Crazy.
It's just funny too. It's like the 1990s. Was that an alligator or a frog shaped swimming pool? He like takes the eyes off and whips it at him. guys, swishy pants, his windbreaker pants on. They're all soaked. I'm like, windbreaker pants, man.
And the one guy's shirt gets ripped too.
Yeah. It almost felt like it was ripped from the start. Like I don't know.
It may have been.
And you just see his back fat hanging out. It's funny.
Yeah. So while Austin's doing this, he's wearing a Brian Pillman T-shirt too. I don't know if you noticed that. He's wearing a shirt that has Brian Pillman's face on it.
No, I didn't catch that.
It's his ECW T-shirt that he had. Pillman was in ECW right around the same time that Austin was in ECW also, in the late '95. So he survives the fight. He survives the fight of the goons outside. So he beats the first level.
He wins.
And now he's gonna.
He
He
wins.
wins.
He leaves one on the hood of the car actually.
Yeah.
With his ripped shirt.
So then they leave for a commercial break at that point, and then they'll come back later in the episode. And Austin's trying to get into the house, and he busts the window open.
A nice house. A very nice house. Brian Pillman was stacking checks. It's a hell of a nice crib he had.
Yeah, that was a nice house. and he goes around, and then he busts open whatever room that he's in. And I just keep thinking that he's going to pop his head in and be like, here's Stevie. Here's Johnny. So he opens up he busts through the glass, then he sticks his hand through, unlocks the door, and opens it. And then Pillman's like, I'm gonna shoot that bastard! Get out of the way! And then the satellite feed is lost. It's just, and when they say lost, it's like, oh god. They show like the snow, like the black and white with fuzzies on the screen.
But you knew it wasn't regular fuzzy because you've never seen your TV have that like shade of fuzzy.
and you know it's not real because it still says like USA at the bottom of the screen on the corner in WWF, all clear. So it's not like they lost it. It's still being produced. So I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
So anyway, they go back to regular action on Raw, and they're talking about it. They're all flipping out about it, of course. And they get some phone calls from production people saying that they don't know what's going on or when the power is going to be restored. They may have heard some big bangs. They're not sure what it is.
Yeah, that's what's funny. They said, like, they confirmed nobody's been struck by any of the explosions. What explosions?
Yeah, what explosions?
He had a gun, not a rocket launcher.
Right. Yeah, it's like when any type of big event happens, like all the stories get mixed up. And it's like, oh, I thought I heard an explosion. And then... And there was never really an explosion in the first place. But then, like 10 years later, somebody will hear the original thing, and be like, "No, they said there were explosions. There's a conspiracy. There's a cover-up." Because
Watch the video again.
They first reported the explosions. What do they want us to know about those
Yeah,
explosions?
Glocks don't burn at that temperature. His Glock was still there. We found it. It should have burned at that temperature. Right now.
Anyway, so one thing I really liked, and it really goes off like that. They don't really get back into it. There's actually, yeah, there's one more clip. I'll get to that in a second. But I just want to point out throughout this episode so far, this is one of the better episodes of Raw. I remember watching at the time, but then watching again for the show. It was one of the best episodes of Raw that I watched since January of '96 when I saw the fall from Austin's time in the WWF. This is one of the best Raws. And what I like about it is that it's a single story and it plays out, through segments throughout the entire episode. It's like well written, produced, broken up throughout it. So it keeps your attention. You want to get back to it. What's going on? I can't change the channel because I need to watch this because they could come back at any moment, interrupt the match. So you just got to keep watching it nonstop. That's the kind of stuff they need to do more often.
More often now, yeah.
I think.
But
now,
the realism was as at that point at its height in comparison to where WWF really had been.
Yeah.
So
this is kind of like one of the beginnings of the Attitude.
yeah, this was. I mean,
They're dipping their toe in it.
yeah, like this is probably their best segment in Raw history up to this point.
Right.
As far as interesting and all that stuff.
We can look back and say it leads to the Attitude Era, but ultimately what happens is they kind of just, we'll get to this a little bit later, but they really don't talk about it anymore. And they're kind of like embarrassed by it. So while they're testing the waters of being more edgy, they're immediately afraid of the backlash that they get from this episode. So it prevents them from getting out there and being edgy.
Yeah, quote unquote, they were embarrassed. But tell you what, they were loving it. They were embarrassed to show face, just, get investors over and all that stuff. Yep. But there's no way. Yeah, there's no way in, like, the boardrooms, Vince wasn't like, we just struck gold, like, that was awesome. Like, no way.
We need to do more of that.
Yeah, like, we're going to apologize and shit, but that was awesome. This worked out exactly the way we wanted to, and now we know we have to, like, we didn't mean to do that, and we went too far. But I don't know. That speaks to the times, though. That was big. Like, yeah, Jerry Springer and all that stuff going on. That stuff was crazy.
Right.
So this was a nice. This is WWE putting its foot in the game, like you said, foot in the water.
Yeah. So that's really the gist of that entire episode. The feed comes back. Pillman and Austin are in the same room with each other, and Jerry Lawler ends the episode with "Somebody get the gun." And then that's the end of it. So, there's backlash to it. On the next episode of Raw, they're not going to mention it at all. And it's just forgotten, basically. Now, it does get talked about over the weekend shows, like Superstars and Live Wire. And on that episode of Live Wire that Saturday, Vince McMahon's on there with Jim Ross, and they're apologizing for it and that it should never have happened. Austin and Pillman both call in and say that they handled the situation the wrong way. And they kind of just cover their asses for USA Network.
Yep.
USA was in on it, though. They had okayed it. They were fine with it. But because of the backlash that USA got, they didn't want to, WWF didn't want to have the heat be on them. So they wanted to take it away from USA right away and say, oh, no, it was our fault. It was all us.
It was great. We had a great business relationship.
Yeah. Obviously they have a great business relationship. They're still with them today.
Long term, though, what a great decision by both parties just to allow that to happen.
Yeah. But it never goes anywhere, though. That's the thing. So.
Yeah, from a story perspective, it does kind of drop off. But think of all the eyes, the extra eyes and attention that media, as Eric Bischoff said, what's it? Controversy creates cash or something like that. Yeah,
controversy creates cash.
Yeah. So.
And they were trying to go up against NWO really at that point, so they needed to do something edgy. And one thing about this episode of Raw is that it was on a different time than usual. USA wanted them to move up to a 8 o'clock time slot instead of 9 o'clock. So this is the first time that they were on at 8 o'clock. It was actually they were going on at 7:57 because Nitro was always jumping the gun like by a few minutes so that they could get people watching their show right away, and then people might forget to turn to Raw because they're already into something that's been going on for 3 minutes. So WWF switched over and did the same thing too, where they started their show earlier just to compete with Nitro.
That's amazing. That's the height right there of wrestling.
Yeah, going back and forth.
Damn.
So now they were on an hour earlier than Nitro because I think Nitro was still. Actually, no, they moved to 8 o'clock at that point too. So they were trying to be head to head, exactly head to head, because Nitro had an hour jump on them for the most part. So they wanted something edgy, something that was going to keep people in for the whole hour, and I think it worked.
Yeah,
I
don't think that you can't argue that didn't work.
Right, anybody that watched that at the time remembers it. It's just historic. The historic part. All right, so we'll go to the next week, and like I said, that is not mentioned. That storyline kind of just drops off, and Pillman couldn't wrestle anyway, so it didn't really make a difference. Pillman was going to be out until at least the spring in a wrestling role, and Steve Austin's trajectory of where he's going in his career is going to be in a lot different place than Pillman at that point. Austin's going to be a huge star by the time Pillman can come back. But not that Pillman's not going to be involved, because he is. Remember, he's in the Hart Foundation.
Yeah, yep.
And then they start to have the feud with Austin, too.
Yep.
So they still go back to it. But
yeah, they do kind of piggyback off this feud a little to kind of progress that. Him being in the Hart Foundation and everything, I mean, so.
All right, so that brings us to Go Home Show of Raw. That's Raw 184 from November 11th, 1996. And Austin's going to have a match with Bob Holly. He just has nothing spectacular about this match. It's just kind of like a warm-up match. Austin didn't have many matches at all during this past month. So let's kind of get maybe some ring rust off and just get him kind of ready for the big one. Big one with Bret Hart. And I think having a match with Bob Holly is a good match to have, because Bob Holly is kind of similar wrestling style to Bret Hart. You know, and the fact that he's technical, the same body type.
Yeah, physical.
Yep. So it's a good match to have right before to get him ready for Bret Hart. He only had wrestled Bret Hart that one time in September in South Africa. Other than that, he's just going in right from that. So they don't have these warm-up matches on house shows or anything like that. They only had that one match.
Yeah, it served its purpose. I mean, it wasn't a great match, but it was, I'd go back and I'd say, go back and watch it.
Yeah.
Didn't hurt.
One thing I do like about this is they have the Survivor Series promos during this match, where Stone Cold's making fun of Shawn Michaels. He makes fun of Bret Hart. He's calling him, I'm not a ballerina, I don't wear pink tights. He says, I'm not a boy toy, I'm not a sexy boy. He's just like making fun of their manhood, both of them. I don't know why Michaels is included. Maybe they didn't know what direction they wanted to go in when they made those. Maybe he's gonna have a match with Michaels. Maybe he's gonna have one with Hart. So let's just have him make fun of both of them. During this match, another thing is we have Jim Ross and Vince McMahon on commentary. And I said last week, we have this Jim Ross that is in a heel type role now, where he is just making fun of Vince McMahon for not knowing moves and such. So Vince McMahon is saying, what a maneuver all the time. And I think at the time when he's saying that, and then I'm looking back at it, what a maneuver, he said that all the time. I think he was in on it. I think Vince McMahon was in on the joke. Like, yeah, people know I say that, so I'm just going to keep saying
Roll with it, yeah. He loves feeding there were internet trolls there. The dirt sheet trolls.
Yeah, dirt sheet at this time. So he obviously knows it's a thing that people say about him. And that's why Jim Ross is constantly saying, oh, what's the name of that move? And he just continues on, oh, what a maneuver. Just like, yeah, screw you, I'm going to say it anyway.
Just ignores him.
Yeah. So Austin wins this warm-up match with Bob Holly. It's Stone Cold Stunner. And nothing really much to it in that episode of Raw. It's the go home. Did you notice anything else with that show? Didn't really.
No.
No. They did much of their build up the weeks before. That by the time they got to this point, there wasn't much left for them to say to each other.
No, because they covered it a lot when they were in that the satellite interview when they were when Bret's at home and Stone Cold's in the studio, which we obviously discussed earlier in this episode. So they kind of cover everything there. Yeah.
Yeah. The only other thing with this episode of Raw is that Austin is looking for Bret Hart. He's looking for him backstage, and he goes to the door that's supposed to be Bret Hart's locker room, and he's supposed to be shaking it and not getting in because it's supposed to be locked. But the door opens, and then he closes it real quick. And the whole time he's saying "No, guys, you're not gonna get this match. You guys are gonna have to pay for this match because this is gonna be the match of the decade." And it's just funny because he's like, "Oh shit, I opened the door." So you can tell he's like, "Ah, man, I screwed that up." But anyways, when he says it's gonna be the match of the decade, like I said earlier, he's not lying about it. But the thing is, the next match that they're going to have a few months later, that might even be the match of the decade or an all-time great match. So he's not lying when he says that.
Yeah, it's definitely up there.
Yeah. And then, like I said, no mention of the gun, but whatever. That brings us now to Survivor Series. All right, Survivor Series being held in Madison Square Garden. And one thing I thought was funny in watching this whole build-up to Survivor Series, and if you watched more than just the Austin segments in Raw, you may have noticed the Karate Fighters segments.
Yeah, I did. I saw it was Sable against
Doc Hendricks?
Mr. Perfect. No, was it Marlena? I watched some of them. I don't remember the matchups. But
Yeah.
There was Marlena, Mr. Perfect, one of the Godwins.
Phineas.
Yeah, and then there was Sonny, Sable.
Yeah. I just remember those as a kid thinking, oh, those are cool.
Yeah, I had those karate fighters.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were ridiculous. It's just, there's no trick to it. It's just go chaotic and
Right.
I think Mr. Perfect
Play
cheats.
one.
I think and wins, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
one
I
of
think
them.
so.
He's like, yeah. He says, "Oh, look, a pig." Yeah, he wrestles he fights the Godwin and says something like, "Look, your sister" or something redneck joke. And
then he hits the thing off.
Yeah. No, he just goes crazy with his guy and he's not attacking, so he just knocks his guy off.
So they were having a tournament going on. I don't know who won, but
Hey, they still kind of do tournaments. Just goes to show you, WWE, WWF, they have their the New Day has their up down channel. They're always doing gaming stuff, and
yeah.
so WWE's always aware. They're always involved in whatever's hot.
Yeah. All right, so this Survivor Series, one other notable thing, it has the Rocky Maivia. And we also go back to having some traditional Survivor Series matches at this one. But the headlining thing here is Bret Hart versus Steve Austin. It's not the main event, but it is a main event. This is what attracted people to this pay-per-view. In addition to the World Championship match, which was Shawn Michaels against Psycho Sid.
Psycho Sid.
And at the last moment, this match, that night, I think, or maybe it was on the Superstars the day before, they announced that this match was now going to be for a title shot. So whoever won this match, Austin or Hart, they would fight the champion at the next In Your House in December, which was going to be called It's Time. All right, so we had timestamp for the pre-match recap, which is really great. You should listen to. It kind of covers everything, in a nice little 3-minute clip. And that's at 1:23:42. And then that's followed up by an Austin interview with Todd Pettengill. And then it goes into the entrance. Austin comes out first. And then it goes over to a Bret Hart interview. So it's kind of like a big match feel. They're going to interview each guy right before they step out. You don't see that a lot now. It was just live in the back. Here's Austin. Austin goes out to the ring. Here's Bret Hart, interview with him. Then he goes out. Now the crowd is pumped for this match. Vince McMahon even acknowledged it. He acknowledged that Austin is hot with the audience. And they even say, well, this is New York. This is not like every other crowd.
Hyping up the Madison Square Garden, the wrestling mecca
Right.
of the world. So
Right, exactly. So this is a big match. And JR, and he's going to do this a bunch of times throughout the match, and he starts right away. This could end up being a submission match.
Yeah, he does. He says that.
He says that over and over again. He's talking about submission, and okay, yeah, Bret Hart has the sharpshooter. It's a submission. That's his finisher. Austin does not have a submission finisher.
Well, Stone Cold does have the $1 Million Dream technically, even though he's not the ringmaster anymore.
Yeah, and that might end up working in. Maybe that's why JR is bringing it up, because they want it. They want the audience to be aware that he has a submission move, or it might come down to a submission. So yeah, I guess that's an arguable point. Which
brings back to a point you mentioned in I think it was last episode, about how if you really pay attention to wrestling, they kind of lead you and tell you what's going to happen. So to that point with the $1 Million Dream, as we end up finding out, does have an impact in this particular match.
Yeah, I always feel like there's foreshadowing in wrestling, and that's what JR is doing here. Is he's kind of setting it up for where they're heading. Is that it might come down to submission, or it might come down to some type of submission move. But I also think that, and this could be way off, but maybe they even knew that they were going in that direction to having a submission match one day with Austin and with Bret Hart, which they have at WrestleMania 13.
Yeah, that's another good point too. Yeah.
This point,
they were laying out the groundwork.
Yep. So at this point in Austin's career, or his time with WWF, this is probably his biggest match yet, probably his biggest match ever, including his time in WCW, ECW. His match with Bret Hart here.
Yep. This is easily his biggest match to date.
Yep.
In any promotion.
Yeah, it's got to be. And it's on the biggest stage. It's Madison Square Garden, which most wrestlers will always say, "Oh, I wanted to have a match at Madison Square Garden."
Yep.
So it's got to be huge for him. And I just want to bring up something about their age at this point. I like to see how old people are and when they're doing what in their career. And we have Steve Austin at this point. He's 33 years old. He's about to be 34 years old. And you have Bret Hart, who's 39. Now, they kind of have similarities, right? So this is Austin's beginning of his run here in WWF, his big career. So he's starting at the age 33, 34. And Bret Hart, who started his singles run back in 1991 when he first had the IC title run after splitting with the Hart Foundation, he was 33, 34, the same age Austin is currently during this match. And Bret Hart's career is going to go until 1997, which is the age 40 for Bret Hart. And Steve Austin's run is going to end around 2002, which is when he's 40. So in this match, we have Austin at the beginning of his career run, and Bret Hart is really right at the end of his career singles run.
Which, in hindsight, I didn't realize how old Bret Hart was at that time.
Yeah.
Which was crazy.
And how he's still so good.
Yeah, and in a great shape, too. Like, you could tell he was just, a lot of other wrestlers, once they hit that age, even nowadays, they kind of start to fall off a little. And Bret Hart, you could argue, might have been in the best shape, physical shape of his career.
Yeah, he probably was. So I think so. Yep. So I just wanted to point that out, that we're seeing Austin at the beginning of his run and really Hart at the end of his run. So it makes sense when Bret Hart's in WCW and doesn't have that great of a run. Well, he was at the end of his career at that point. He's 40 years old. Yeah. Not that he couldn't go on and have great matches, but it made sense. That was the end.
Yeah, his career was sunsetting for a majority of wrestlers. So at that hit that age.
This last year, though, of Hart's WWF career, 96 to 97, it's arguably his best year.
His best. I think it was his best.
Yeah.
How can it not be?
From the Iron Man match at the beginning of 96 through this, and then Austin, and then throughout his heel turn with the Hart Foundation reformed, and then his Survivor Series match with Shawn Michaels, the screw job, and all that. That was a great year for Bret Hart. His final year.
He was, a lot of the Attitude Era, he was just a perfect opponent for Austin at that time. They were just perfect for each other. Bret Hart doesn't get enough credit, I think, for being as important as he really was to the Attitude Era.
Oh yeah, because he's the guy that the cocky guys like Stone Cold in this instance, or eventually DX, they have clean cut Hart, he's not into that stuff. He doesn't think that's right for wrestling. He comes off by being the morally upright guy as coming off as a bad guy.
Yeah.
Whereas the people that were not morally right are looked at as the heroes.
Yeah,
So
they were the good guys.
Right, the anti-heroes.
You want to be cool, man? You better root for the bad guys. You know? That mentality.
Yeah. So this match starts out on the timestamp. I'll give you a timestamp. Is 1 hour, 31 minutes, 46 seconds, and goes into 2 hours, 19 seconds. So you got a nice half hour of an event here. And we got Tim White as the referee.
Hey. Haven't seen
The more
him in
I
an
watch-
Austin match before.
The more I watch Tim White, the more I see him as a great ref with the things he does in the ring.
Yeah, I really haven't paid. In all these matches, I'm like, oh, well, Tim White again. And then I totally forget he's there.
Just wait until you start to see some matches later, and people are probably going to be like, what the hell are you talking about when I say this? But a lot of the matches that I watch after this point, okay, like going up to WrestleMania 13, matches that are refed by Earl Hebner, I just feel like he sucks. Like he's in the way, and I don't know. I'll explain it more when we get to those episodes, but Tim White just comes off more organized and on the ball than.
I'm looking forward to bashing some referee work.
Yeah.
Pay attention to this.
There's only so many things. I'm trying to look at every little thing with
now I'm gonna pay attention to the refs.
Deep cuts. All right, so this match gets going. You have a little ground and pound type action early on, slow pace, which is fine.
Yeah.
You know it's going to build up over time. I like that kind of slow start, slow pace, trying to feel each other out. Well, the one thing I didn't leave out is that right from the start of the match, you have the double birds right in Bret Hart's face.
Yeah.
Crowd gets excited for that.
Yep.
And then they get into it, and we have more of this JR talking about submissions. And nobody's submitted yet.
Yeah. Neither wrestler has ever been submitted.
Right. Nobody's ever submitted before. Oh, jeez, man. Really on top of it. So you have that going on. Okay, you see the crowd going back and forth between Austin, between Hart. And I think they're more for Hart at this point. I think you still have an audience that is still supportive of Bret Hart.
Yeah, you do. The younger crowd. The younger crowd, like grade school kids. Because the Let's Go Bret chants early are all young kids. And just, watching that then, and then you watch, the WWE nowadays, it's the younger crowd cheering for the Roman Reigns, boo, because I hate that guy. And cheering for, John Cena. You have the children cheering for him. And then you got like the adults and stuff like, no, boo. The teenagers, hitting puberty, no. Like they're the ones that kind of cheering for Austin at this point because, it's cool to be bad.
I feel like that happens, every so often.
Yeah.
You'll have that changeover where you have some of the audience is older now.
Yeah.
And now they're sick of one guy, so they start to go for the other guy. So the older crowd, like say the late teens, early 20s, are rooting for Austin. Kids are still for Bret Hart. And prior to that, it was probably the older people were sick of Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
And now they're rooting for Shawn Michaels instead of Hogan.
Now, like, you like Hearts? What are you, pansy? Stone Cold's got skulls, guy. Schoolyard talk.
Funny. What's funny, though, is that, not to be too modern about what we're talking about, but the people that end up being those wrestlers that nobody likes, or a certain crowd doesn't like a Roman Reigns or even a Bret Hart, they end up being the top guys still. Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
The top guys because the kids are the ones that support them.
Yeah, they're the one buying stuff.
Right. Well, they're the ones asking
their
parents for stuff.
Even though Stone Cold sold a lot of 316 t-shirts.
Oh, yeah. He probably got a lot of kids in trouble in school
Yeah.
for all the catchphrases they're eventually going to learn.
Yep.
Rat's ass. All right, let me get back to the match here. So you have the first big spot in the match is the stun gun,
Yeah.
which is, he lifts the guy up, drops him on the chest on the top rope. So Bret Hart takes that. Excellent. Now, there's a reason why Bret Hart's called the excellence of execution. Everything he does is flawless in the ring.
It really is. It's awesome. The guy's amazing.
Just every little thing you try to look, he doesn't make any mistakes. When he takes a suplex, his feet are landing first, just perfectly, just enough where he's gonna catch the break. He's not gonna land on his back. He's gonna get his feet down first, take the fall that way. Just every little thing. He's eventually gonna give a pile driver to Steve Austin. Looks freaking brutal, but it wasn't. He's excellent. So, I mean, it's tough to say he's underrated, but I feel like he is in a way.
Yeah, that's a tough sell because I don't think you're walking
but-
to wrestling fans that are like, oh, he's under, he's not that good.
Well, I think he's
But-
underappreciated then. Sometimes.
Yeah, I think I agree. Underappreciated. That's a much better. Totally agree with that.
So we're having a great match here. Steve Austin's no slouch in the ring too. We know before he was this Stone Cold character, he was an excellent ring technician, and he uses that to the hilt here with Bret Hart, and they make for a hell of a match. So Hart's making a comeback eventually. About 12 minutes into the match, Austin had much of the control up to that point, and a slow-paced match, and then it starts to go a little rough. They start to get into a brawl. And you have some outside of the ring action, which is always good to have.
Yep.
Yeah, it breaks things up. So they go into the Spanish table, of course. And JR even says, it seems like it's always the Spanish guys that are affected by this outside ring action. So he does a couple moves onto the table. They don't break the table. They just use the table. He falls on the table. Bret Hart falls on the table.
They lose some
Austin gives an
monitors.
elbow. Yeah. Well, Austin gives him a body slam on the table, and Bret Hart's head is right on the side of the monitor. It's like, wow, he could have just slammed his head on there. But they did it perfectly. Now, a couple of things not related to the in-ring action that I had a couple of notes that I wanted to bring up is that hard cam. Hard cam's focused directly at the entrance. So you have the crowd, but then you have the entrance. So it's a break in the audience. And you see that throughout most of the match is that camera angle. And I think it takes away from the excitement of the match because you're seeing less of a crowd. You're seeing the entrance so much of the time. I think it would have been better if they had the hard camera just face the larger portion of the crowd so you could see more excitement. Because it does take away from the excitement of the match. In my opinion, it did.
No, I agree. It does. It takes away from the experience of. I think another angle you feel more involved in the match. I don't know. It's just like a better. Yeah. That was a bad shot. I'd say that.
Yeah. And they used the same shot at WrestleMania 10 too. And what sucked about it is you have people in the entrance aisle, just like standing there, walking around. It's just distracting. You see these just guys popping in and out in the background. Production people. You don't want to see those guys. They're distracting.
Yeah, they're supposed to be behind the scenes for a reason.
Right. Yeah, right. They're supposed to be taken away from main action. Upstaging.
Tell their grandkids, look, that's me right there. See, I was famous. Yeah, sure you were, you loser.
So JR also brings up a couple of things about Bret Hart's career, Madison Square Garden. Earlier in the last episode of Raw before this, JR even said that Bret Hart has a lot of history at Madison Square Garden. And he brings that up here again. At SummerSlam 91, he won the IC title from Mr. Perfect. And then he won the world title at WrestleMania 10 against Yokozuna in 1994. And then here, 2 years later, he's having this excellent match with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, the match that they reference at WrestleMania 10, that is not the best match. He won the world title, but the real match of that night was Owen Hart and Bret Hart. The opening match, WrestleMania 10.
That's right, yeah.
That's an excellent match. Well, back to Austin. This is the thing with Bret Hart, and this is going to happen again in the WrestleMania 13 episode. It's going to happen at the In Your House Taker's Revenge episode. Bret Hart is just so excellent that it's tough not to talk about him.
Yeah.
You know, instead of Austin.
And I think when we get down the line with some of the other feuds, it's just going to become a theme for these episodes as we progress. Like, these other wrestlers in the match, they're a big part of who Austin is. So we're gonna be talking about them, you know, just as often in those instances.
Yeah,
so
it's not all Austin. It's who's his dance partner.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, we're talking about them too. So you have more of this. Bret Hart's not going to quit. He's not going to quit in Madison Square Garden. Imagine if Austin makes him quit. So you're having more of this whole quitting thing going on here. Yeah, Bret Hart now, like I said, he was battling back. He has these great working punches. He even gives Stone Cold the stun gun. And I think Bret Hart used that anyway.
So do I.
I feel like he's used that in matches before, but at this point it was one of Austin's main moves, like a setup move. And Bret Hart used it on him too. After that, yeah, we're about 7 minutes away from the end of the match. You have that pile driver spot, which kind of made me cringe.
Yeah, I did.
But it seemed to be all right because Austin's up and at it right away, so you know that Bret Hart nailed it perfectly and protected Austin. But still scary knowing that just months later, Austin's going to be dropped on his head by Bret's brother, Owen, with a similar pile driver at SummerSlam. It's going to take him out for a few months. But that's Owen Hart, not Bret Hart. Bret Hart, excellence of execution. Austin gives Bret Hart a suplex off the top, which JR will credit as being one of Bret Hart's moves, so they're kind of making it seem like Bret Hart took one of Austin's moves. Now Austin's taking one of Bret Hart's moves. So he gives a suplex off the top rope, from the very top rope. Usually it's from the second rope. But in this case, Austin's going to go from the top rope down. And that is nailed perfectly. And we still have Vince McMahon at that point yelling, "What a maneuver!"
It's like a soundboard at this point.
Yeah. And then, just moments after that, Austin's going to hit the stunner. And it's uneventful. It's not like, it was kind of just quick out of nowhere type stunner. And it's close to the ropes. So Austin pulls Hart away from the ropes to get a pinfall. And then Bret Hart kicks out. So that's the first time that anybody's ever kicked out.
And they play up the point, Jim and JR and Vince play up the point of, him having to move him, kind of, probably gave Bret the time to kick out and stuff. So
right, which is good on their part.
No, that was that whole little 30, 45 seconds there was a really great spot in the match.
Yeah, excellent spot. Because it's his finisher.
Yeah.
And he should only be kicking out if he does have that extra time. And Austin moving him to get him to the center gave Bret Hart that time to get out of the finisher. And then you have Austin continue to cover him. Like, no way, I got to be able to pin him. And he keeps kicking out at 2. But you can see that Bret is still struggling, so Bret's still selling the move. He's still saying, that move was devastating. I'm only kicking out barely. So it's not like you would see today where someone hits the finisher and then they're up running around the ring seconds later.
I thought the same thing. I'm like, this was before... it was 5 finishers and, one off a top rope and then another off, the scaffolding of the entrance or something. And then now you can pin the guy. Now he can't kick out.
Right.
Back during this time, the finishers kind of were a little bit more true to the definition of a finisher.
Oh, right.
So.
And he just kept going for the cover and he kicking out. So.
Yep.
When I was writing my notes for this, I just put on the side of it, Bret Hart is the fucking man.
Yeah.
just doing that, just knowing that I might get to sell this move, even though I'm supposed to be kicking out. He needs to cover me a bunch of times.
Yeah. And I don't think he hooks the leg in any of them, right?
Right.
And
Yeah, I don't think Austin. No, I don't think Austin hooks the leg. There was another time though that Bret Hart went for a pinfall,
and he doesn't
didn't
hook the leg.
Yeah, he doesn't hook the leg either.
And JR calls him out for it.
Yep.
Like, oh, maybe it's him shaking the rust off because he didn't cover the leg there. He didn't hook the leg there.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I didn't mention earlier in the match too that they were going for covers.
Yeah.
Which is another thing you don't often see either is people trying to win the match.
Yeah.
The whole point is to get that 1, 2, 3 and it's over. Like if it happens in the first 2 minutes, then great, you won. You go back to the locker. You go back to the locker room. But you don't really see that now. Not that early in a match anyway. People just trying to get the win. And if they do, it's kind of like a cover where it's nonchalant, like, oh, I know I'm not going to get the win here.
Yeah. let me flex over him or something. It's more to like taunt.
Yeah. All right, so as the match continues on, okay, we're getting towards the end here at this point. Now that Austin's gave the stunner, and he's kind of in like the mode of I got to do whatever it takes now. He gets Hart in a Texas Cloverleaf, which similar to a sharpshooter. I love that move. Dean Malenko used to use it. Excellent move. I don't know why Austin used it. Maybe it had to do with the name.
I always
Cloverleaf.
love the Texas Cloverleaf too. Just a cool looking move.
Yep. So Hart eventually gets to the ropes. JR's creaming in his pants because it's a submission move. A submission move on Hart. Hart's going to submit.
I told you so.
So Austin eventually uses another submission hold. I forget what it's called. It's kind of like a torture rack type of move on the ground though. A bow and arrow, I think.
Bow and arrow. Yeah.
Bow and arrow.
Yeah. What a maneuver. That's what it was.
What a maneuver. Yeah, that's what I would call it. What a maneuver that is. Then Hart tries to get the sharpshooter on Austin after they reverse that, and Austin's quick to the ropes for that one. And you just have this constant back and forth. And Austin's going to go for one more submission hold. It's going to go back to his old move that he hasn't really used at all since Beware of Dog, I think, is the last time maybe he used that with Savio Vega. When Ted DiBiase was his manager.
Yeah, that
so
sounds about
for
right.
all these months, he's not using the $1 Million Dream, and maybe he's out of his luck and he needs to go to that move because nothing else seems to be working. The stunner didn't work.
Yeah, and it's planned.
It didn't work.
Yeah, it's not like he randomly, Bret Hart's coming off the rope and he randomly hits him with it. Like he's behind him, hands in the air, waiting for him to get up, ready to, hook it on. So
then he hooks it on, and Bret Hart's struggling with it. Then Bret Hart kicks his legs up on the turn post, bounces him back, flips over, and ends up getting him pinned, covered for a 1, 2, 3. The match is over just like that.
Yeah, because Stone Cold didn't want to let go.
Right. He was trying to keep it on, and Bret Hart was forcing him to the corner, kicked off the corner. And
which I think implies something else. He didn't want to let go of the move. But I wonder, I guess we'd have to look back. We'll find out as we watch matches in the future, if he ever actually uses or attempts to use the $1 Million Dream again. Because if he doesn't, maybe him letting go, he should have let go, and now he finally lets go of the $1 Million Dream, and his career can now flourish and blossom.
Yeah, he's probably also thinking, I'm not using that move again. That move screwed me last time.
That move sucks.
Why the hell would I use that dumbass move anyway?
It was a cool move, though. Just
I liked the $1 Million Dream.
Yeah, it never looked good. He never looked right doing it, though.
So this match ends at about 2 hours 19 seconds. Excellent match. I mean, this is the most we've talked about a single match yet on this podcast.
Nah, this was a great match. Like, you have to go back and watch this match. If you haven't seen it in,
20 years.
This was. I'm 99.9% sure this is the first time I've watched the match since the first time I actually watched the match. So.
Wow. So yeah, 22 years almost.
I was like, wow, this is crazy. Just the pace and everything, and just what wrestling match should be.
Right, we don't see it that much anymore.
Yeah.
And we see good matches by today's standards, but this is a different generation. And these matches are what we grew up on, and just an excellent match.
Yeah, and the finish, neither of them uses their finisher to win the match, which is great. Yep. Just, great storytelling in the ring.
So with that win, Hart earns a title shot
at
In Your House, which will be December 15th, which we won't really be covering at all. because Austin doesn't have a match at that pay-per-view. So he goes from this great match to not having a match at a pay-per-view. And there's bigger and better things about to happen that we'll get to. Well, skull rating. What do you say?
So what's our high? 5?
5 is our high.
I'm going to say... I'm going to go with a hard 4 skulls.
Yeah, I'll go with 4 skulls too. I was contemplating 5 just because it's that great.
Yeah.
But knowing that there's an even better match yet to come.
Yep.
And that's definitely a 5. Like, maybe this one's just not as good. But it's up there. It's like, maybe they could both be 5s. I'll go with 4 also. With this one.
I got
4 skulls.
There are 4,
Maybe
which is great. 4 skulls is great.
Actually, a little add to our little ratings here. We'll make this 4 smoking skulls.
Yeah, the upgraded 4.
Yeah, it's just upgraded. It's 4, but it's just a little bit better than 4.
There's like flames and shit going, and it's hot, so you know it's better than the regular skull.
Right. These skulls say Stone Cold on the forehead.
Yeah. These are smoking skulls from the Broken Ranch.
All right, so that concludes this episode for the most part. We'll talk about what's coming up next, but that wraps up Survivor Series 96, October and November. I do have my my matches for November that he has. We'll run through those real quick, which is kind of just coming off of that great match, and now to talk about this, it's like, crap. So, in November, prior to this, Steve Austin had 3 matches, 3 nights in a row of Aldo Montoya. And in October, he had that match with Bob Holly that we talked about today. Yep. But on house shows, 3 matches with Aldo Montoya. Then you have Survivor Series. And then he goes into the Raw and Superstar tapings, which I won't talk about here because I'll save that for the next episode. We're back on the house show circuit. You have a match with Goldust. He defeats Goldust on November 20th. November 21st, he defeats Triple H, who is the IC champion at that point. Then November 22nd, he loses to Sid, who's the world champ, so he's having a world title match on a house show. And then the 28th, another Sid title shot. He wins by DQ. And then November 29th, another match with Aldo Montoya. So that wraps up his November house shows. And then next week we're going to get into the rest of the Raw and Superstars of November, just those last couple of weeks, and then get in through December. Okay, like I said, he's not at the pay-per-view, so we'll just be covering whatever appearances he has on Raw, Superstars, and he kind of build up to what's to come. And then in January leads us to the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. Okay, so that kind of brings us 1 year through. And we started with December and January of 95, 96, and now we're going to be here at December 96 and January 97 next week with the Royal Rumble. And this is the Royal Rumble that he wins. So we possibly, we'll see, might cover Royal Rumble match itself as a separate bonus episode. Now, we won't do all the Royal Rumbles like that. Okay, this is just because it's a Steve Austin winning Royal Rumble. So he wins 3. So the idea was possibly to do the 3 bonus episodes for each of his Royal Rumble wins. And I think there'll be some good stuff to talk about, funny stuff to talk about as different people come out, make their appearances in the match. So maybe we'll have that for you next week also, in addition to our regular episode, December and January 96, 97. JV, anything you want to add?
Nope.
What do you think of that Royal Rumble watch-along type?
As long as it'll be tough. I want to post it out, but next week, the same week might be a little hard just with scheduling. But if not next week, it's a bonus episode that you might be able to, go back and listen to. We might just post it a little after the Rumble or something. But if we can, if I can get the time to work, we can. I'm interested in doing that. Why the hell not?
Oh yeah. And if you have any suggestions for any type of bonus episodes, feel free to shoot us some ideas on Twitter. Okay, Twitter is BottomLineCast at BottomLineCast on Twitter. I'm MPRU83 on Twitter. So send me any suggestions, any comments about any of the episodes. Feel free, reach out. Hey, you also have John. John, what? Oh, JV. JV, what do you got?
John, look at that. Can't tell them my real name. No, Twitter is John Van Damage, and shoot me a DM, tweet me, whatever. You got questions? Maybe we'll read them out on an episode. You have suggestions, like Mike said, for bonus episodes. I'm open to that as well. So we'd love to hear from y'all.
All right, so next week we'll be back with the Royal Rumble 1997. Thanks for listening, guys. See you next week.